is a good offer.
Welcome to the Clause YouTube channel.
Together, we strive for a safer, secure, and more stable world.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to yet another episode of Clause YouTube channel Strategic Frontlines. Today we have with us Lieutenant General Sanjay Verma, PVSM, AVSM, VSM retired. He's a strategic analyst with wide experience in defense industries. We also have with us Lieutenant General Harimon Iyer, AVSM retired, a defense analyst and professor of practice in aerospace department at IIT Chennai. Please also welcome Lieutenant General Dushyant Singh, PVSM, AVSM retired. He is the DG Clause. And today we are going to discuss how in the changing geostrategic environment, what is the basic impact on defense? As we know, Pakistan is on one side lobbying with the US and coordinating with China and Turkey to boost its defense preparedness. Whereas India's policy of Atmanirbhar Bharat through defense indigenization is making waves. And in this journey, India's startups are playing a major role. India's major transformation on its defense industry has been basically, when we see it is the positive indigenization list, a phased import ban of about 5,000 critical items, which has allowed the private industry to get in the scene. Secondly, IDEX and TDF, they offer grants to procurement, support, and fund innovative measures in defense technology. We have seen a defense production reached 1.27 lakh crores in the year 2023-24, making a 174% jump from 2014 and 15. So my first question is to General Verma. General Verma, what is India's current status of defense ecosystem? Do you feel that IDEX has created a vibrant ecosystem for the startups and MSMEs? There are more than 600 startups for defense and private sectors. And the private sector is playing 21% of the share is by private sector. So what, in your views, this time is different than the previous era? What are the key policy and strategic changes? Your views.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. I think that's a very pertinent question to ask, that where do we stand today? And you quoted certain statistics. I will start from saying that perhaps it is too early to start with statistics. But I firmly believe that we are on the right path. There's no doubt about it. We started our journey into the defense modernization and capability building on an Atmanirbhar note way back in 1947. There was no doubt about it. At that point of time, the stress for Atmanirbharta was different. Low technology threshold in the country, very less capital available to invest, the socialist socialist norm of growth, the industrial policy of 1956 forced us to get the defense sector only for the public sector and not for the private sector. And that is how in 1958, the DRDO, then 1956, the Department of Defense Production, a slew of impetus to the DPSUs, Defense Public Sector Undertakings. In fact, it was at that point of time we started also one public sector undertaking, Mishra Dhatu Nigam, Vidhani. We realized that materials are going to be very important, whether it is for barrels, for aerospace, materials are going to be the lifeline. So the dream of becoming Atmanirbhar was there. However, as we trace the journey of our country, we did face a lot of issues as far as our neighbors were concerned. and we were forced to get into within 2 decades of our 2 to 3 decades, the 62 war, 65 war, 71 war. So somehow we went and we got a lot of equipment capability from the USSR at that point of time. But in the we built trees where the tanks are, the aircrafts are being made, where the shipbuilding is there. So whole lot of ecosystem came up at that point of time. We realized that we are not on the right path. Somewhere when we got into the liberalization and globalization era, and realized that our capabilities are limited only to transfer of technology. We are not growing. We do not have R&D base. So coming on to the present day, the impetus given to am I audible?
Your voice was getting cut, actually.
It's getting, yeah.
It is intermittently coming. If you can switch over to the mobile communication, I think that would be better. Because I think your Wi-Fi is having a little problem. You're on mobile?
I am on mobile right now.
So
Yeah.
that means there is
That's why
some problem.
Wi-Fi.
So meanwhile, while you're handling the communication bit, let's invite General Iyer to throw some light on the same issue from his perspective, basically.
Absolutely.
Good evening. Thanks for inviting me on the show. Thanks to General Dushyant and Dr. Khanijo. Firstly, I go by the same words which General Sanjay was mentioning, but I look at it a little differently. So if I was to charter the journey from 47 to now, and if I was to divide it into two parts, pre-71 and post-91. Pre-71, we were possibly going the way the world was going. And that is when all these establishments came up. And we followed the World War II legacy systems which the British left with us. So all our ordnance factories which were designed and left by the Britishers, we continued with it. Those which went to Pakistan, we re-established them in India again. And by and large, if I was to say, it was more of a public sector undertaking which was taking part as far as our defense production was concerned. The DRDO with its labs was well established. However, the kind of talent which the DRDO should have taken on board was not forthcoming. And somewhere in the 70s, we realized that we don't have, or we are falling behind the technological curve as the world was in, especially in terms of big ticket purchases. So when we tried our first battle tank, Vijayant, it was a noble attempt, if I was to use the word. And to a large extent, the gunnery part of that tank was possibly world class at that time. It was matching what was there in the British system on which that particular tank was based. But it had huge number of problems in its D&M side. And as such, we realized that this tank won't work for us, and rather than investing into technology, we adopted the import route and we followed into the Russian folds. And thereafter, we did not attempt to make another tank for another 20 years. So from 70 to, let's say, mid-90s, 2 decades of opportunities were lost. I will trace the same thing back to artillery systems. The 75/24 howitzer, which was designed and manufactured by us in the 60s, was state-of-the-art at that time. The 105mm Indian field gun was state-of-the-art when it entered the system. But we did not take that manufacture forward. So in the 70s and 80s, we decided to import these equipment, whether it was the Russian guns, plethora of them entered, or we went the Western world way when we imported the 155mm Bofors gun system. And a policy was taken that possibly we don't have the capability to manufacture modern equipment, possibly because our public sector wasn't, up and coming towards absorption of technology. And that 2 decades of loss has actually hurt India tremendously. And I must say that we have regathered that momentum in the early part of the new millennium. I will trace it back to somewhere around 2005-06 when we started, resuming our engineering. Large number of private sector companies were, ushered into the system. And in the last 10 years, post the Make in India initiative, which the Prime Minister rolled out in 2015, the last 10 years has been a tremendous amount of improvement in that. And to a large extent, now we are capable of demonstrating our capability towards modern equipment. That light tank, which we are going to usher in very soon, and the speed at which we have been able to put it together indicates that there is no short of talent in India. Today, our ATAGS or the ATAGS matches any medium gun which comes out of the stable in the world. And we have the capability of creating multiple variants of the system which can match any artillery system which is available in the world. Our missile program possibly is a huge success. Again, that is something which I will attribute to autonomous bodies which were, dedicated towards that particular program. And each and every missile, barring possibly the anti-tank missile, which also I'm very sure we will succeed, has found the light of the day. Whether it is the Pinaka, the Prithvi, the Agni series, the BrahMos, the Pralay, even the Akash series have succeeded. So in a large extent, I think, barring about 20-25 years where possibly for some reasons we were, a little lagging, we have caught on. And I guess in another decade or so, we will catch up with the modern technologies in the world and we will become one of the main manufacturers of defense products, because we can make defense products much cheaper than what the world is offering to us. That's what I feel about this.
General Singh, would you like to add on to it? And then General Verma can also continue. And apart from that, I would just like to ask a small question also. How do we balance the need for immediate defense modernization and the long-term goal of defense indigenization? Both the questions.
I think since General Verma has come back, so let him continue with his remarks, and he can start from the beginning, because right from the initial stage only your mic was giving some trouble. So over to you, Sanjay.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. I mean, that is what technology does to you. At the time when you are confident that technology is there with you, but at times it fails you. So,
but now it's good.
I did hear what General Iyer had to share, and I do agree with him. So what I had started was, again on the same lines, that we started on an Atmanirbharta path way back in 1947. We built up robust institutions like the DRDO, the ordnance factories, and defense public sector undertakings, including, I mentioned, the need for indigenous materials, Mishra Dhatu Nigam Midhani. So the realization that we have to be self-reliant was always there. However, the drivers at that point of time were different. The drivers were that we had a low technology threshold available within the country. We did not have a vibrant private sector which could participate, and it needed government intervention. So that is why it was done. General Iyer has already traced the path through the trajectory that till the time we came back to 2000. So I will cut short over there. But I will say the actual Atmanirbharta, the Kargil Review Committee was a watershed moment in our defense. Not only acquisitions, it looked at border management, it looked at civil-military relations, it looked at intelligence apparatus. But then again, from 2002 onwards, when the DPP came, the way we expected reforms and new issues coming up, did not produce the result which we were expecting at. 2020 is another watershed year, and this is the beginning of a decade. So I'm talking about 2030 and beyond. What was driving that? Let's be very clear that it was not only defense. The Honorable Prime Minister had revamped all the ministries to work how the economic growth can continue despite the pandemic. And defense was also identified as one of the sectors which has capability to contribute in the GDP growth, economic growth. So that is why the defense sector also came up with massive reforms. And if you look at the 20 reforms of 2020, the list is huge. And what Dr. Roshan had mentioned, the positive indigenization list, 75% for indigenous development. But the hallmark was announcement of CDS, the Department of Military Affairs department, and then some policy measures which are incorporated in the DAP 2020, like make 1, make 2 were already there, make 3. So we realize that import substitution has to take place. So besides the positive indigenization list, the foreign direct investment, that also went up. The restructuring of ordnance factory boards. Now these were all signals. R&D into private sector, component level indigenization. So all this were indication that, okay, now reform. Cutting the story short, where are we today? I had begun by saying that Dr. Roshan had quoted certain statistics. I would only say the statistics are looking very good. If we look at what is the sort of a defense production which we are looking at, our target is 1,60,000 crore for 2025-26. Our defense exports is looking at 30,000 crore. 20,000 crore we've already touched. But this is just tip of the iceberg. Real technology has still to come in. If we quote ATAGs, incidentally, General Ayer, both the projects which you mentioned, the light tank and ATGM, I still continue to mentor both of them. And there is a lot of miles to cover still. We need the components, the sub-assemblies to be manufactured in India. Now, those need reforms. What sort of reforms? I think maybe we can discuss during the discussion later on. But you said, Dr. Roshan, you wanted answer to the question of how do we look at immediate and long term. Immediate, I think, something I'm writing today also on emergency procurement, that is to mitigate the immediate voids. But long term, we need to have a strategy for Atmanirbhar. What I am hinting at, we need to have a family of platforms concept. If we are looking at AD systems, short range, long range, so that you build up on that. Similarly, if we are talking about light tank, can I look at light tank in isolation? No, it has to be an integrated vehicle platform system, because integrated guided missile development program, which Honorable ex-president and Dr. Abdul Kalam, it's a family. You keep building up. So if you build up a light tank, isn't the turret coming, transmission coming, all these systems are coming? Can this be upgraded to higher versions? So a strategy for Atmanirbharta, for air defense equipment, for communication equipment, for a vehicle platform, for surveillance equipment should come in, so that everybody is clear in the next 5 to 10 years, how are we going to upgrade and get our capability building going. So I'll stop here and then we can take more questions in the discussion.
General Singh, your initial take on this and anything you want to add?
Yeah, basically on the initial comment of Jan Verma and Jan Iyer, while we started off initially on a route of indigenization, I today mentioned also in the seminar here in IIT that for example, the nuclear technology, it's totally indigenous, and one of these sanctions actually helped us further build on it. And today we can say very confidently that in nuclear we are our own masters. We don't have to depend on anyone. This was started way back. In fact, had there not been a little hitch in the policy, probably we would have been a nuclear state by 1965 only. Not, we wouldn't have had to wait till 1975 to announce to the world that we are. And in 1965, it would have been easier for us to announce and then proceed on our path of indigenization. Probably that would have given that necessary heft for others to accept what we were doing in terms of even if we resorted to reverse engineering. It was like the Chinese. What they did, they actually announced their nuclear capabilities much earlier, and thereafter they had field day doing. Of course, it's not in the Indian nature to do anything incorrect. But why not? If there is a war going on, we can always resort to certain things to protect ourselves. Then I feel where we went slightly astray from our indigenous route was that once we were able to establish the public sector into some kind of a stability, we should have brought in the private sector much earlier. I think that was one area where we should have done a little more initiative should have been taken a little earlier. Stepping into that particular sector getting the private sector required a lot of effort. I was once upon a time with an army commander. I was his SO, and he used to keep saying, why aren't we privatizing? Why aren't we privatizing? And I'm talking of almost 30 years back, 35 years back. It took another 10 years for people to realize that, we need to exploit all the resources of the country. It's not only one sector. That is the second issue. The third issue I would say is observation. This is just it's not any affront to any particular organization, is that the R&D somehow was unitrack. I think the R&D should have been opened out to the academia also. There should have been more of user academia interface as well. I'll quote this by an example. I was in the United States in the year 2006 or 2008, and I was there for good over 1.5 years. I was in a naval establishment, which it was a university actually, naval postgraduate school. They had an extensive science wing also. They had humanities, science, and defense wing. That kind of a arrangement was there. You will not believe it. The Afghanistan war was going on, and the Iraq war was also fading away, but it was still going on. I mean, the operations against various terror groups, especially Shia terror groups, was going on during that period. What I found was that anyone having any problem in the field, he was not waiting for. I mean, he was a major, for example, a major of the army in Afghanistan was involved in sniper shooting, right? They realized that they are being shot even before they actually spot the snipers. So they wanted a system where they could identify the snipers before they identify them. So he was sent all the way back, and then there was a continuous back and forth of the scientists going to Afghanistan along with that Major Saab with one prototype. Second time they come back again, and within 6 months, you will not believe it, they developed a system. What I'm trying to say is that connect of the user and the academia and the private sector and the public sector, immaterial, they're all working for the nation, right? That should have been started a little more earlier. Now it is going I mean, there is a lot of emphasis on this issue. These were few, and in hindsight everybody can become intelligent. I can also become intelligent, but what I'm saying is people who went abroad and who came back, their experiences should have been rightfully harnessed. Anyway, so these were my observations on the trajectory of Atmanirbhar Bharat. But my main important question is that how can we now this here I will request the two of them to comment, is how can we now use our better indigenization standards. I'm not saying we are there. We are actually, we just started a journey. I can quote some figures. Like if you look at the government figure, they say 65% of defense equipment is indigenized. Right.
Indigenous.
But in this 65% also, how much is really indigenized is something which we have to we have to go deeper into analysis. Then we have a positive list of 5,500 plus items, and 3,000 out of these are indigenized. Well, again, this positive list, is it helping? Is it retarding our capabilities? Those are issues we need to identify. Likewise, I have a host of things. Vikrant is indigenized, Tejas is indigenized, ATAGs are indigenized. In fact, Sanjay just spoke about ATAGs, what problems we are facing there. BrahMos, I agree, has been, but BrahMos was again with a collaboration. So isn't there a lesson for us in that, that maybe a collaborative indigenization, possibly till the time we get a high-end technology, is the way ahead? uh, Maybe. Then ammunition, yes, that is one area where we are fairly okay. I believe 154 of the 175 variants of ammunition have been indigenized, and the target is that by the end of 2025, 100% indigenization in ammunition should take place. And as a result of this, the production was recorded at 1.27 lakh crores in 2023-24, and exports were at around 23,622, which is slated to be increased to 1 lakh crore by 2032. So it's a good, I would say, aim to achieve. But the question is, how can we utilize this capability which we are rapidly building to somehow send that message across to Pakistan that, partner, you dare not meddle with India anymore. Yes, they are also, because probably they have realized it, and that is why now they are playing the game with both China as well as America.
Yes.
So there is one lot which is sucking up to America, the second lot which is going closer to the Chinese. I don't know how they are going to balance this art of playing with the two fires around them, yet getting away with it, knowing fully well that there is going to be FATF review. India has been successful in proscribing the TRF. So there are whole lot of complex issues which are emerging in the geopolitics. Can our Atmanirbhar Bharat initiative help in dissuading Pakistan from undertaking any misadventure in the future? So, comments of Sanjay and Iyer. So, Sanjay just spoke, while we can start with Janal Iyer.
Yeah, General, before you start, I'll just add to what General Singh was saying. If we see the private sector participation is just 21%. So, how can we increase this private sector participation? Do you feel that there are certain still complex procurement procedure which is stopping it? The civil military fusion needs to be much more better equipped. That also you can add to it.
Oh, thank you, ma'am. Firstly, I'll answer your question. Private sector, ma'am, it has just entered the defense production line, if I was to use the word. Not that companies like Tata was also involved, but then they were involved in very small projects. Now they are coming up with bigger projects, big ticket projects. We have to give them time. I'm sure, like, once the export kicks in, like the way Kalyani Bharat Force has suddenly started to supplying arms to Armenia, they made a huge amount of money. If I'm not wrong, $1.81 billion or something. So it's a huge export order they have taken. It will encourage other industries to come forward. So we need to have patience. It will come, ma'am. Over a period of next 5 to 10 years, like General Sanjay said, we have to look at a decade starting from 2020, when the new DAP has kicked in. The new DAP has got some very, very robust and very encouraging, production encouraging methods available with us. So we have to stay patient, and that's all I can say. And I am very sure over a period of time, the value of private industries will keep going up. Larger number of startups, and I have been in the system now for the year working with the IIT Madras, and I see there is an enthusiasm amongst private industries to come in. I will go back a decade ago when this Make in India came about. I was a brigadier in the army headquarters, and that time we had reached out to almost something like 1,000 plus MSMEs and SMEs in India to try and see how we can indigenize a large number of our components. And what General Singh was saying just now, degree of indigenization has improved. So I guess we are on the right path as far as privatization is concerned. Sir, I would also like to add one more case study which needs to be looked at. You see, the most interesting case study which I saw is this M777 howitzer, which the Americans have sold us. And I was involved in its procurement, so I went into the detail of this particular equipment. It'll be strange to look at it because it has got 6 countries which has participated in this program. And they may not be total NATO allies per se. So what the Americans did very smartly was they kept the design with themselves. They kept the main part of the gun, that is the barrel, they kept it with themselves. And outsourced those issues which would have created a huge amount of infrastructure requirement to manufacture within their own country. In fact, they even used a British contractor, the BAE Systems, to manufacture. But they kept the control of the sale of this gun to themselves. So the only way to acquire this gun is through government-to-government deal through the Americans. They won't sell this gun anyway. So the countries which have got this gun, apart from America and to some extent the NATO partners, are Canada, Australia, to my mind, now Ukraine, and maybe I was told Saudi Arabia. So they have kept that control, but yet at the same time, they need not have to manufacture everything in their own country. So that is possibly another way possibly India can look 10 years ahead. As far as Pakistan is concerned, sir, I have a little different take. Pakistan has been surviving on what I call as khairat. And they have been possibly, for the last 4 decades plus, since the time the trouble started in Afghanistan, they have cozied up to the Americans first. Then the Americans ditched them, they went to the Chinese. Then again Americans came back, they went back to the Americans. And now they are, doing this fine balancing act. I was reading somewhere today that the entire fleet of F-16s are now almost, as good as gone because they don't have any spare parts. And these machines have, lived their ages. They're almost 40 years old.
Yeah, they are becoming a tourist attraction now.
Tourist attraction. And that's why they were moved to Pasni, because they didn't want any of them to be, taken out in this combat which we had last month. So in that context, I think Pakistan is a little lucky that, and they don't buy their equipment. That's the second thing we should understand. They get all their equipment as grants, whether it is the Americans giving it to them as grants for using their facilities in airfields, etc. in Pakistan. They did that when the Russians came to Afghanistan, and then they did that again when the Americans are fighting the Taliban. So for about 2 decades, they used free money from the Americans to fund their such projects. And as far as China is concerned, I've been always maintaining that China is using Pakistan as their trial ground, and possibly even Op Sindoor, they tried it. They possibly thought that after Op Sindoor, the Chinese weapon products will become it will become a good competition to America, if I was to use the word. They were trying to put it across as the most good alternative, lucrative because they're cheap, and they wanted to possibly get their industry up. So today, if you look at Pakistan's stockpile, it is all either 50% is Chinese origin equipment, all those which China wants to sell abroad. And they want Pakistan to possibly advertise it for them, if I was to use a very weak, loose term for it. But I take it as a trial ground. So whatever they tried in Op Sindoor, it was trying to showcase the capability of the Chinese equipment, which thankfully failed. So I don't think they're going to get a large number of market. And as far as China is concerned, I feel they have gone the Atmanirbhar way, and we should learn from them also. China went hugely into Atmanirbharta, and they tried to show their equipment to be, very versatile and capable, almost better than the American systems which are out in the world. And Op Sindoor has exposed the Chinese capabilities also to a large extent. In fact, we have been seeing it in Ladakh. In fact, I was there in Northern Command when the things happened, and we were seeing with our own eyes as to how brittle the Chinese equipment was. Their mission reliability, as we call, was very, very low, which meant that I don't think they are They are what they loosely call as China ka mal. They are not going to survive, a long operation per se. So we have to find a fine balance. We have to ensure that our equipment which we make in our own country, each matches the standards. We cannot, compromise on standards and QRs just because we are on the learning curve. And therefore, that's why I said we have to go slow. If required, import a certain degree of equipment, manufacture, and over a period of time, slowly indigenize it and reduce the import content, as we have done with our gun systems. We have done it with the air defense gun systems over a period of time. Like General Dushan was mentioning about the ammunition. Our entire ammunition initially was of import variety, and over a period of 3 to 4 decades, we have been able to indigenize most of that ammunition system. So this is the possible way forward till the time that we have the technology curve catching up with the requirement. And simultaneously, like General Dushan mentioned, we should continue our research programs so that the next lot of technology is our own homegrown technology. And that should match what is coming in the world. That is the catch point here. We cannot compromise on standards and capability of this technology. And that's why it's a caution we should keep to ourselves, that in the garb of trying to become Atmanirbhar, we don't end up giving our armed forces equipment which possibly don't survive or don't perform during war, because that is possibly the worst thing we can do for our armed forces. So I continue to maintain that Atmanirbharta is the order of the day, but we have to move with caution and possibly also learn from our experiences. I'm sure there must have been a huge amount of lesson learned which has come out of the Op Sindhu action. Also, the 4 years that we have been, operating against the Chinese, both in Doklam and in Ladakh, it gives us huge number of lessons. And finally, sir, one more point I want to mention, and this is something which I've been saying everywhere. The emergency procurements are, it should not be the permanent way forward. And I felt that, we have been going after one EP to another EP. And what happens is, since emergency procurements are, small amount of money, we end up, buying equipment which is not universal. And then General Verma will be able to throw more light on it. Maintaining this equipment becomes a challenge altogether. And I've also realized in the last 5-6 years that all our line directorates are now concentrating on EP, emergency procurement, because by the time we finished EP1, we jumped into EP2 because the Balakot thing happened. And then by the time we finished EP2, Sindoor has come and we have jumped into EP3 now. So we should ensure that EPs do not put our main procurement or main research lines into any degree of compromise. That is personal feeling of mine, and we need to ensure that those things are taken forward as they were planned. That is what I wanted to say.
Yeah, I think that leaves the floor for Sanjay. Sanjay, you can skip whatever Jan Iyer has said and just focus on the two aspects. And the first one is that which is that area which we focus as far as Atmanirbharta is concerned in the next few years, which will send out that signal that, yeah, we mean business. I mean, see, everybody, the point is well taken that we can't be having indigenization in every kind of component which we are trying to, equipment which we are trying to build. There would be components which will have to be part of our supply chain coming from XYZ locations, even collaboration, like we just mentioned. But there is one sector or two sectors which you can name them that they will be game changers if we become indigenized in that, and that would probably pass that impact on to our neighbors, to our countries which are hostile to us, that India is not going to be a walkover next time round.
Okay, sir. Now, starting from the reverse, this thing, what you just asked, I don't think by just stating that you become confident in, manufacturing, building, research and development in this, any neighbor or anybody is going to get deterred. because this is a world where, I mean, we just heard the highest echelon speaking that our neighbor is getting help from China as much as it can. So that will continue. So I don't think any amount of, building up our capabilities is going to deter. So that probably this is my feeling, sir. But we need to build up. So I will come to the other question which you stated, that which are the sectors.
Yeah, basically, what I'm keen to know is which are those sectors which will build our capabilities to the extent that India becomes a power to reckon with. Let's put it this
Absolutely, sir. So I gave the example of the light tanks. So, and a strategy for Atmanirbhar. So the sectors are just waiting for us. The only thing is we have to, give a capability roadmap. How do we want this capability to manifest? Then only the message will go to the industry. I'll build up on the light tank example only. Okay, light tank, as far as capability for manufacturing of engine is concerned, no. Turret, no. Gun, no. Transmission, no. So we are integrating it and getting the act together. But suppose if the visibility into that this is going to be a family of platforms on which we are going to build up our FICV, FRCV, same sort of a chassis or a little bit of a modification, a higher horsepower engine, a better suspension system. So what happens is it gives an indication through visibility to the industry that these are the numbers and we can keep going up now. Look at the light tank. We are talking about it. No, there is a Zorawar is coming up through the LNT and DRDO route, but we all are well aware that there is something coming up from the Make One route also. Now look at the numbers. Is this number viable to build up an indigenous manufacturing capability within the country for engines or any other system? We keep cursing the Arjun, but did we have the numbers to build up a manufacturing capability or start doing research on making our own engine? Unfortunately, no. So, what I said in the last this thing also, a family of platforms, whether it is air defense, whether it is communication, whether it is surveillance, whether it is air vehicles, has to be built up. Then only there is a visibility and research will go on. You raised two issues during your this thing, sir, that where did we go astray? We went astray in 90s and 2000, or maybe 80s, 90s, 2000, when we were confident of the equipment we already had from the erstwhile USSR and Russia, and we were getting it from the manufacturing facilities which we had set up in our country. However, where did we go wrong? Where did we go astray? We went astray that we kept importing the components, sub-assemblies. Today, even the preheater or a starter generator of a tank is being imported. This has been corrected in 2020 that the subcomponents, sub-assemblies also will not be allowed to be imported. So this is where we have corrected ourselves and a clear signal to the industry and to the user. So the going part astray is attributable to the user, to the DRDO, research people, to the industry. We were all complacent. Now coming on to the R&D. You raised a very vital issue that only the government does the R&D part. Make One has been there for long. In Make One, 70% is being funded by the government. How many cases do we have successful? Not very many. This money is being given by the government. Then TDF and IDEX has come up. It's showing good signals. But the intent is now very clear that the government money or R&D will be shared. Research and development and innovation, 1 lakh crore has been now reserved. There is a fund which has been created. I hope that we all make use of it. If you look at the R&D figures for our country, so it is 0.6 to 0.7%, not today's. This has been since so many years. And how much do we spend on the R&D? The private sector just spends about 40%. The bulk is being spent by the government, 60%. And out of that, 43% is being spent by the central government. Our expenditure overall is just 0.6 to 0.7%, whereas countries like South Korea, Israel, Japan, US, and many others spend more than 3%. So the private sector has to build in and contribute more to this activity of R&D. Fortunately, good things are happening. The government is coming out with bold steps in giving R&D money to the private sectors also. Now, the only issue is, how do we enable the provisions? Because in R&D, there will be failures, sir. And whenever public money does not produce the viable result, there are questions raised. So even in 2023, I think it was there when the Honorable Finance Minister announced that 25% of R&D budget will go to private industry. Let's ask a straight question: how much of it has gone? There have been no takers for that, or there have been no provisions. So we need to build up a robust R&D. And today, fortunately, what is happening is, sir, that most of these technologies are dual technologies. If you are developing an engine, it's not only for tank. We need heavy earth movers. We need heavy vehicles, heavy space rockets. We need, similarly in communication, quantum, similarly in radar technology, similarly in communication technologies. So these are all dual technologies. We should pump in a lot of money. And like National Quantum Mission and Semiconductor, fortunately, like DGIS and all others have got connected with the quantum mission and AI mission. This is the way to go. These are where, we will ride on the benefits which are accruing to the sector at large, and will also benefit the defense sector. There was one question which Dr. Roshan said 21% has gone to the private industry. Dr. Roshan, today's statistics are a reflection of the contracts which have been done in the past 4-5 years. So for the statistics to rise, it will take another 4 to 5 years. And I will end on this thing, that even today what we are talking about, the capabilities, maybe ATAGs, maybe QRSAM, maybe ADFCR, even Akash Tir, AK-203, are legacy systems. They are not today's system. They've been in the works for last 10 to 15 years, each one of them which I have mentioned. So, to close my remarks here right now, a structural reform to the acquisition and procurements, a very professional approach, single accountability, responsibility, delineation of responsibilities, and a family of platforms development model. I'm very fond of quoting the Army Futures Command. Give responsibility, give him a task, let him build up the capability, and let them produce results.
Since there are 3 generals, I want a small question here. Like in the Navy, they have something called as VESI. And they are doing very well as far as their submarines are concerned, their ships are concerned. They construct all those things and they're doing pretty well. General Singh also mentioned about missiles. We are doing very well in missiles. And in fact, we were the first one in Asia to have Apsara, which was the nuclear reactor which we had. But we lost the bus. It's a different story. So I want to ask all 3 of you, do you think something of that kind is required?
Yeah. How do we
Start in the reverse order? Who
Yeah,
ended
do you
first?
want me to?
Okay. Okay, Dr. Roshan, you have a very good this thing, and everybody is very appreciative of VESI and the way the Air Force has gone. And let me also be appreciative of what efforts they have done and how they have indigenized their own fleets. But please remember, a ship is a system of systems. It's got its own peculiar communication system, its own gun system, its own propulsion system. We have a diversified requirements in different terrains, in different operational conditions. It becomes all the more challenging. Yes, we did bring up the Army Design Bureau, but like I mentioned earlier, in my recent study, which we have finished with the Army headquarters, we mentioned that this Army Design Bureau needs to be built up on its capabilities. How? They should be capable of designing. Can't my officer design an FICB? He can do that. A digital twin he can create. But we need to empower the Army Design Bureau to do that task of designing, integrating with the industry. So the ADB needs to be empowered with not only operational professional officers who are already there, but also professionals from industry, from research and development, from private industry, from commerce, from legal, name it, there has to be a team. And this is, in fact, I will refer to the article which I've just submitted to South Asian DevStrat, where I've said there should be a team of professionals who should be heading and leading every acquisition from womb to tomb. So there is a project team leader. If it is FICB, he takes all the responsibilities and carries this forward. So Army Design Bureau needs to be empowered, but it is not so easy as the Navy and Air Force, where they are platform based, aircraft based or a ship based. We are not, the Indian Army is not based on platforms.
Yeah. So, General Iyer, go
Yeah,
ahead.
yes.
I'll have the last word.
Sir, firstly, the Army Design Bureau, General Sanjay has brought out. It was pulled in with a lot of enthusiasm about a decade ago. It was supposed to mirror what the Navy was doing. So we thought that in the next 10 odd years, Army Design Bureau will grow the way Navy grew, but we must give them time because it took Navy a period of time to establish themselves. So possibly, but at the same time, I don't see. I've seen this Army Design Bureau grow. In fact, I must confess that there was a time when I was also being slotted to go and head that bureau when I got promoted to my rank of Major General, but somehow it didn't materialize. But so I was following it very closely. I don't see it manifesting in the manner in which we had expected it to go, let's say a decade ago. It's gone slow. So we need to have patience with it. That is one. Secondly, you must realize that I did a study last year before retiring on this cadet training wings that we run in our training establishments. And I took a statistic and I found that we are having almost 300 plus engineers who join the army every year, and they have been there for the last 20 years. So if you just accumulate them, we have got more than 6,000-7,000 qualified engineers who could have been the workforce of what General Sanjay was enunciating a little earlier. We have to identify and possibly put people on the job. That is something we are forgetting. An engineer who's got capability, like I got 2 of them here now. We just opened. Must inform the audience who's watching that we today inaugurated what we are calling as the IIT Madras and Indian Army Joint Research Center, the first of its kind in an academic institution. And General Dushyant and me are here for that reason today. It is a small start. And the 2 officers who are heading it, one of them is from the CTW, and one of them came as a short service engineer who came into the system. So they are here. They are quite capable. I've seen both of them working here. They are as up and about as anybody in this startups ecosystem that is working here. Only thing is we have not been able to harness our talent. We have not been able to guide them. And like it has been assumed that there are agencies who are supposed to procure and give it to us, we are supposed to only maintain and use them. That is the kind of legacy that we have been following, maybe the kind of concept that we are following. And something needs to be corrected on it. And second thing which I must like to bring out is, we need to allow our defense policies to mature. Since the time this DPP came about, I think we have had 6 versions of it in the last 2 decades. And by the time one particular system starts getting embedded into the environment, we override it with a new one. The industry gets confused. I have so many industrial friends who come want consultation to, sir, what is the implication of this particular paragraph that has been inserted into this procurement process? Sometimes I wonder why do we have to keep changing the PP? In fact, I must say, when I joined the procurement scheme in 2014, DPP 2013 was just about 6 months old, and we had 110 amendments which had been pasted onto that copy which was on my desk had 110 amendments in 1 year. So if that is the way we are going to keep changing our goalposts, the industry will never be able to keep pace, because, like General Sanjay mentioned, people are going to invest money only when they know that this money is not going to get sunk, and we need to give them a little time to gestate in this process. And the second thing is something in our way of doing things. We need to look at it differently. When an industry comes into private industry comes into defense production, he has to show profits. All the while, when we are looking at ordnance factories and DPSUs, they were government funded agencies. They were very happy in taking their own time. So most of our projects, which were supposed to have got completed in, let's say, 24 months, went over for 60, 80 months, because they were not answerable, and the money was not theirs. It was government money which was being pulled into it. Today, if a private company comes into a game and he is to produce something in 24 months, if that project gets delayed, he loses money.
Yeah.
And that is something we have to ensure, that we have to hold hands, guide them. And that is exactly what we in the IIT Madras have started doing. We are going to be available to the industry to come and help them fix their research problems if required, and help them realize a system. And unless that kind of a thing comes in, we will always lag behind. That having said, let me tell you the kind of progress Atmanirbharta has made. I have seen it grow in the last 10 years, madam. We should be proud of the way the Indian industry, both public and private sectors, has taken on to it. And I have full faith that all our dreams and programs will find the light of the day in a decade or so. So that's the kind of gestation period. In the beginning itself, I said we need to have patience in this kind of changes, because we are changing the whole system. We are changing from a public sector undertaking to a private sector driven program. It needs a lot of changes, especially on bureaucracy, which has also got to get used to signing on files. Today, the biggest roadblock which we find is our finance regulations, which come in, and every time a file goes, a new finance rule is quoted and the file comes back. So if that much amount of time is going to take up in paperwork and bureaucracy, we are going to find difficulty in getting the private industries to come forward. So we need to expedite a certain amount of procedures. We have to find ways and means to, help people getting established. I'm sure all of these people are not come here for fun. They come here for money. They are all here to do business, and so be it. If by doing that we become self-sufficient and become a world power, ultimately any export which a private company is going to do abroad is going to get money for the government. So it is win-win for the Indian government per se. Therefore, some amount of relaxation in our rules and regulations need to be brought in, and a degree of patience needs to be, like somebody mentioned, failures. Yes, research is something you can't. It's a game of failures, and with every failure you learn and you come back and you start redesigning the thing. We may or may not meet the milestones. That's it.
Yeah, so that leaves me to summarize only, because most of it has been spoken to, and that is what a smart general cadre officer does. He lets the specialist talk, and finally, he has to just do the summing up. Well, that being said, on a lighter note, on a serious note, I have two, three issues. Why we can't have a basic kind of a approach. Some of it was mentioned too by John Sanjay Verma. We are not a platform centric organization. We are human centric organization. And this was spoken to today by the chief himself. The Navy offers platforms, big show, right? The Air Force offers high tech platforms, again, platform based. If I were to say who are the fighters in the Air Force, just the pilot. Rest of the other people are into logistics, maintenance, technology, etc., etc. But it is, essentially a platform-based high-tech equipment. What is the army? Army has to fight in water, sea, air, space, wherever you want to take it. You can take the army, but it is human centric. And when it is human centric, it is that much more complex. Our requirements are that much more complex. The same equipment, can it work in minus 50 degrees and plus 50 degrees? It's a challenge. Today, your well-known friend, Vice Admiral Vatsayan, he spoke that when we build in India for the coastal region, we build it for the deserts, we build it for the plains of Punjab, we build it for the hills of J&K, we build it for the high altitude or the extreme high altitude battlefield of Siachen, roll down to Himachal, roll down to northeast, which is full of jungle and hills both. And then there are some areas which are high altitude with no oxygen, nothing. I'm talking of the areas of Sikkim. Now, can you really build a weapon system for such a thing? So we have our own challenges. Having said that, we can do more than what the ADB is doing now. And I was interacting with the ADB and I told him that, yeah, look, we are only doing the function of a GS, general cadre officer in the ADB, which is that, we are laying down our problems, we are laying down our requirements. Nothing beyond that, which General Ayer also mentioned. So I think there is a serious need for us to have pilot officers, project officers within the ADB created who move a project from womb to tomb and become the interface between industry, academia, DRDO, and the government also. And in this project could have people not only from the army but also have people from the government who are the guys who are responsible for pushing the files. Because if they are into this project organization, probably they'll take the ownership of pushing the file also along with them. I saw this kind of an approach in the energy and I liked it, because the IPS guys then took it upon themselves to ensure that they push it along with their IAS colleagues who were there, the same batch, etc., etc. Although they also fight like we fight amongst each other, they also tend to have similar kind of a tough battle, but still the battle becomes that much more easier. So that was one issue which I wanted to add. That if we do all these two minor tweaking into our ADB, we'll also slowly graduate towards a better Army Design Bureau, which has better interface with the others. And this ADB commander Janman is doing a good job of it. He's trying, at least he's trying to identify the problems. With that, I think we need to call this particular discussion to the end, because we have already reached the 1 hour mark. If you want to ask any questions, Dr. Roshan, you can go ahead.
No, I think we have already come to the end of it, because it's 8 o'clock, and I think we should end.
And it is time for gun and shot. No, but if there is anything interesting, you could look at the chat box and ask.
We can take one or two questions.
There was something on ask why not pursue export markets more aggressively to justify more Atmanirbhar, thus generating the demand volume to justify costlier R&D and manufacturing. Won't exports revenue help sustain things? This is, I think, self-explanatory. What do you have to say, Jan Verma?
See, the
Jan
export
Verma?
market is, yes, the export market is being pursued aggressively. I don't think there's any stone left unturned, whether it is communicating through the DAs who are posted abroad, or through the industry, giving them export license. Also, if there is a product or a equipment or a weapon system which has not been procured by the Indian Army, but still there is a provision that we make it that this is being tested and tried by the army and it is fit for use. So that gives the confidence to the country which is wanting to import. So we've gone all the extent. So I think the export envelope is being pushed as much as it can. It now all depends on the people who want to import it.
Okay.
There's one
I think
thing, this one last one, Subhash Sabarwal. In case of R&D, more of grants should be given rather than cheap, irrespective of the outcome of that research. Case of funds for jet engine is classic example of this. No test bed and testing facility.
I guess it's a good suggestion. I just wanted to add something which General Sanjay mentioned about exports. The problem is most countries who want to import will only import equipment which is already in service. So you have to ensure that that equipment is acceptable to you before you start exporting it. Armenia was maybe something in a different light. You can't make it as a template. So we must ensure that the equipment first enters service and then only goes into export. Otherwise, people may not buy it. As far as R&D money, madam, the problem is grants. If everything is on grants, the value of that money will not be understood. So I believe that people should also invest, and I feel the private industry should learn how to invest into R&D money. Unless and until they do that, they will not take it seriously. And unless they take it seriously, the product won't be realized. So it has to be a mix of grants and loans. Can't be one way. That's what I feel.
With this,
Yeah.
I think I would like to thank our panelists.
just
General
just
Sanjay. Okay.
just
There's
just
one.
this is a wake up call for all of us. So I thought this comment must go in and get recorded on the YouTube, because are we viewing India's Atmanirbhar Bharat through a rose tinted glass? We have been on this path for a while, but gaps still exist. Do we need a more critical evaluation? Alia M. What I'm trying to bring out here, these are common public listeners of ours who are listening to us on a daily basis. They are also getting impatient, and they are really interested in the talks which we give every day. I think we need to seriously, at whatever level we are, push sincerely for this Atmanirbhar Bharat thing, and uh, we all can make a difference at our level wherever we are. Anybody last comment, and we close it there, because
No,
gonna
but I
short us.
think I think that comment is absolutely perfect. I mean, yes, the
Yeah.
statistics and everything we are looking at through the rose-tinted glasses. But let me say that 5 years we've taken this seriously. 5 years is no time in
No
this
time. No
industry.
time. No
It
time.
will take another 15 years. Right now, absolutely, whosoever has made this comment, you are absolutely right. I myself get concerned that in the name of Atmanirbharta, am I getting technology which has been taken from abroad? People are giving me technology they have taken from abroad. So wait and watch. We are on the right path now. 2035, 2030-35 will be the right time. And I quoted all the platforms, all the equipment which you are using right now has a footprint which may not be truly indigenous. So yes, absolutely right. But we are on the right path, and 2030-35 will be a good decade to watch.
10 years.
Thank you.
10 years is minimum, sir. 10 years is minimum.
Okay. Thank you. I think
I
that's a
think,
good time frame.
yes, I think all of you stated very important aspects of Atmanirbhar Bharat, and we are in the right process. It will take time. China took 10 to 15 years, so we have just started. So obviously, we'll take time. So I want to thank Lieutenant General Sanjay Verma, Lieutenant General Iyer, and Lieutenant General Dushyant Singh for this podcast, taking time and coming out for this. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you,
very
and
much.
Thank you.
Jai.